Okay, let's move on to something that we kind of like to do going into the season. I think we did this last year. I'm not sure. But Tommy and I sat down and we put together our top 10 questions heading into the season. And we will check in throughout the year on these to see how these progress, because we're not going to have the answers to some of these until probably the very end. Mm-hmm. So we'll go from 10 to 1 and kind of what we deemed an order of importance, or what the biggest questions are. And we'll start with number 10. So we've actually talked a little bit about this today, a lot about it actually. Mm-hmm. So the first one, what will the semifinals look like compared to last year? And I was thinking about, okay, it's simple to say, well, will we have all of them in person? That was too simple of it. That's just like a binary yes or no question. So that's up in the air. Mm-hmm. But to me, that means like, okay, will we, that is part of it. Will we have all of them in person? What would the programming look like? And we have some answers to that. CrossFit is now going to provide 2 events for each semifinal that they have to do, and then the rest is sort of a blank slate. Mm-hmm. But also, I'm curious about just media coverage. What CrossFit's plans are to help stream some of these. Will there be, back when we used to do the regional shows, will there be some sort of like centralized desk show that loops all the coverage together? Because I think that was something that was really missing this last year that really could have brought, really enhanced the viewing experience, where you could have sat down and you had 3 events going on in a day. Obviously, they'd be in different time zones, but you could stay up to date on everything that was going on.
Yeah.
And then, just what are the competitions going to look like? How are they going to select who goes where? So that's why I think that's why that question is intriguing to me.
Yeah, for sure. And you even take that a step further, touching on some of the live elements. Australia is opening back up in a week, 2 weeks maybe. So it looks like some parts of Europe are starting to open back up, Strength and Depth being one of the European regionals. So it's looking like we could have a potential wider slate of events taking place in person. Obviously probably with some restrictions, but more or less we're getting the majority, hopefully, of events in live competition, athletes physically on the floor getting to earn their spot to the CrossFit Games. And I also think that if there are virtual events, having already 2 prerequisite events programmed by CrossFit kind of makes the variance between virtual versus live a little bit lower.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're already doing a portion of their slate that's going to be identical. So, and for us, it's always nice to compare and contrast as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to see, Strength and Depth has done a great job in the past, absent of being, a semifinal, but being a sanctional and running multiple events. They put on they were one of the few ones that had a full live stream production before, anyone else was involved.
And it was really good too.
Yeah. I think the biggest curiosities I have are, what does this Far East Throwdown and the Copa Sur look like? Lowlands Throwdown also had a solid live stream back when they were in the sanctionals as well. So I think those 2 European ones are set up nicely. What does the Far East Throwdown and Copa Sur look like? Because for the MAC, you're going to kind of rinse and repeat as far as the quality of coverage for the Syndicate Crown. Torium Pro had a solid stream. Granny Games had a solid stream. Fittest in Cape Town have yet to fully maybe buy in on a stream there, so that's kind of I'll be interested to see what that does. But they have a long-standing history running events there. So to me, the biggest question mark is the Far East and Copa Sur. So I'm excited to see what a South American semifinal looks like post-sanctionals era in Brazil, with the passion and the support that they have from the community there. And then where does the Far East Throwdown kind of tap into all of this, and how do they fit into the pecking order as far as like the production they're able to provide, the competition experience and everything like that?
Yeah. Okay, next question. So this is now number 9. Is Laura Horvath the undisputed number 2 behind Tia? And we talked so much last year, and I know why, about the dominant performance that Tia had, and we always talk about that at the games. And then what Annie did was incredible as well. But right there in second place, Laura Horvath had if it hadn't been for Tia, a super dominant performance of her own that would have garnered a ton of attention, had it only not been for Tia and also Annie Thorisdottir. Mm-hmm. And I think now with Annie going team and Laura looking like she's back to the form that we saw her rookie year, is she that number 2 that is sort of the heir apparent to Tia and that maybe is separating herself from the rest of the pack. And that's one that we're going to have to wait a while to find out, but I think we'll have some indications as we move through the season.
Yeah, for sure. And, I will give my preseason prediction, regardless of whether it plays out on the leaderboard or not, because, this is like the way too early
right, exactly.
top 10 rankings that they do on ESPN or any sports show. I think the answer, given the data that we have so far, is yes. You look at the last 4 years at the games, she's the only athlete to be number 2 more than once. I think you take that a step further. The 2 years that she was second, 2018 and 2021, were the most, I guess, uninterrupted, unsullied years at the games.
There wasn't a different point system. There weren't a ton of cuts. I mean, there were cuts this last year, but at least they were done after I think what you could say was a very more or less complete test. You knew who was not going to make it at that point.
You didn't have the cuts due to COVID. I think in 2018 and 2021 were the 2 years out of the last 4 that really were able to take place. I don't want to say unadulterated either, but just in a more traditional sense.
Yes.
We'll say that. And obviously she was second both of those years. And I think there was a little bit of that, I don't want to say swagger, but like the confidence that I saw in her throughout the year that maybe was shaken after 2019, having difficulties in Dubai, at Rogue, getting cut, despite a pretty decent weekend so far in 2019. And then, obviously 2020 just didn't work out. And I don't know if the virtual element of that is necessarily her best foot forward, because there are the high level type events that you get outdoors at the games that she excels at, that you don't get in those settings. And I think it's fitting that her arc kind of has followed in the same vein as Vellner and Fikowski, who also had resurgences last year.
That's a good point.
And their last really solid years at the games were in 2018. I mean, when you have what I would consider a complete test and you allow athletes to really sink their teeth into it, to have a more accurate representation of their fitness by taking on a larger portion of that test, I think that's where you start to see the true number 2s, number 3s emerge. And I think for right now, that looks like it's Laura Horvath on the women's side.
Yes, well said. We will see how that plays out. All right, next question. So now this is number 8 we're on. What will we get from Sarah Sigmundsdottir this year? And obviously we talked a little bit about her at the top of the show. And, I guess the question for me is that to piggyback on this is, have we seen the best Sarah that we're ever going to see? You think back to when she first emerged onto the scene, finishing on the podium and doing what she did her first couple of years of the CrossFit Games, and then bouncing around from different coaches. And I don't know how many it is now at this point, or different settings or different training environments she's had. And then coming off the knee injury as well. And that's why I like the fact that she's with Max, because I think Max can get her back on that track to being the athlete that I think we've expected to see for a while now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And I'm not going to know until I probably see her in the semifinals, get a better sense of this. Because, look, she'll make quarterfinals. She'll get through the open fine. She'll probably be shocked if she doesn't qualify for semifinals. And then I think that's really where we get to see, all right, what Sarah are we going to get this year?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I think if you're looking at have we seen the best of Sarah relative to Sarah Sigmundsdottir, I don't think we've seen the best yet.
Yes.
I think that she's obviously still has a lot of room for improvement in a variety of areas. I think that if you ask the question, have we seen the best of Sarah Sigmundsdottir relative to the field? I think so. Maybe, unless she's able to somehow catch some magic and finish second, in which case that would be the best finish on the leaderboard. But I also think that you can't discount in 2015. Really, it was execution errors on the final event that prevented her from being the fittest on earth. And if that's the case, then you really have to you have to think that maybe in 2015 there exists an alternate reality where she wins. And so I don't know if we'll see a Sarah that was capable of winning, at least from a fitness standpoint, whereas execution was the thing that held her back. And obviously you can't discount execution because sports at the highest level demand execution to fully realize your potential. I do more than anything else, what I hope we will get from Sarah Sigmundsdottir is a fully healthy, full slate of competition for her.
Yeah.
So her being healthy, allowing her to compete throughout the entirety of the season. Execution, placement aside, I just want her to be healthy because I think for an athlete like her that has had multiple injuries and multiple speed bumps along the way, confidence in your body and trusting your body again is probably the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
She had a broken first rib. She had a bacterial infection that just wiped her central nervous system. And, she had the torn ACL and all of these things. And just being able to have confidence that my body is going to do what I have trained it to do is a big deal. And after that, the rest is gravy, in my opinion, because she still does have some prime years left. She's going to be 29 this year. And you also have to look at training age, too. That's something we don't talk about a ton. Sarah's training age is probably a lot lower than most of the other athletes in the field because she didn't compete really at sports growing up.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And she's had a couple years where her injuries have cut her season short. So she doesn't have the wear and tear, especially last year. So that's a really good point and something that we'll keep an eye on. All right, next question. Now we are to number 10, 9, 8, 7. What will Katrin Davidsdottir accomplish this year? Every season, we go into the games and she's there. I don't want to say I don't know. I keep expecting okay, this is the last time that she does what we're used to seeing her do, which is put on a charge, late part of the games, and then wind up inside the top 5, wind up possibly on the podium. And I don't know. Given everyone who's coming up behind her, Sarah's back, how strong Laura Horvath is, the teenage athletes, and we'll talk about them. Given how competitive that landscape is this now finally the year that they catch Katrin, or will she be able to do what we've come accustomed to see her do, which is, I don't think a lot of times we give her enough credit for just how good she's been these past few years.
Yeah. And before last year, I thought there was a strong case for her to be the second best female CrossFitter of all time. And I think it was a fluctuating kind of status. And I think Annie made, to be coy, snatched that back up with her performance at the games last year. But I do think what Katrin can accomplish this year is, a continuation of what we've seen from her in the past, to where she'll have an excellent year. She might have a slightly down year relative to her standards, and then she finds a way to bounce back and persevere. And I think moving back home, being home, training with one of her best friends, if not her best friend, and Annie Thorsdottir, without having the competition of I need to beat her at the games, right? Because I think that's also important. She gets to train and get the benefit of training with Annie, who's probably not going to change much training outside of the team element that she's going to mix in here or there, and not have to worry about when we step onto the competition floor, we're going to be locking horns. So I do think it's possible that we see a resurgence of her back in the podium hunt, and that remains to be seen, but that's my kind of preseason ranking.
Yeah. She's been in the top 10 every year since 2015. That's nuts.
It's incredibly impressive in a murderer's row of competitive women, just showing up year to year and knocking on the door. And last year was obviously a 10th place, and it was there was higher expectations. But same thing happened in 2017. When we never felt like we saw Katrin kind of fully, I guess, spread her wings at the games after 2 years where she was, the fittest woman on earth, and then she bounces right back in 2018 and gets another podium. So it's certainly possible.
She is really putting together a hell of a career.
Yep.
That brings us now to question number 6, and this is another one that's going to take a while for it to play out. Which training camp has the best season? And there was a lot of conversation last year about the training camps. We were part of that because it was it was just a unique situation. Like, all these training camps seemed like they just sort of sprung up everywhere. You had CompTrain, you had Underdogs, you had Proven, you had Mayhem. I'm sure there's some other ones I'm missing out there, but those were like the major ones that garnered most of the attention. And I don't think it played out the way we thought it would. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that 2 of the Underdogs athletes didn't even get to compete at the CrossFit Games. That had a big part of it. But, if I'm, if I'm kind of like too early predictions here, I think I might have to go with that crew right now. Overall, like if you just went average placing at the games, I really like that Underdogs Athletic crew. But
so first,
who knows?
Well, first I'm gonna have to no rep you because this is I just counted. This is question 5.
Question 5. Okay, I can't count.
Watch your cursor go up from the bottom, and you counted reverse
All
correction.
Right, so my apologies.
Yeah, question 5. So
I was told there'd be no math, Tommy.
Oh man,
I can't smart because I have the dumb.
So let's take stock here a little bit. We have CompTrain, Northeast. We have HWPO now with a couple of athletes there. You have Proven. You have Mayhem. Mm-hmm. You have Underdog Athletics.
I forgot about HWC. There you go.
Yeah,
how can I forget that one?
You have Underdog Athletics. You have Training Think Tank. You could even go I guess if Katrin is over there and you look at team success as well, which you would factor in for
I'll allow that.
For Mayhem, you have to look at the training plan, which is Yami Tikanen's crew. Let's see. Then I would say you have to look at John Christian Singleton's the athlete program.
I was way off. I missed a ton. See.
Let's see. Or is it the program? Sorry.
Yeah.
There's
because they did really well last year too.
Yeah. That's my apologies to the program. The athlete program is another crew that put a team together. The program is John Christian Singleton's crew that has Gabby Magawa, Jacqueline Dahlstrom. Yeah, they have I believe Sol Sigmundsdottir. A ton. I mean they're building quite. Let me see. I have their full little Happy New Year's. Dang it. Where is it?
I mean, it's a loaded field with these things. And I just named a couple off the top of my head right there. But you brought up hard work pays off. Like it's going to be, and I don't know if this is going to be one of those things where it's like, I don't want to say make or break year for some of these training camps, but I think some of them, there are some that like really need to show marked improvement over what they did last year. And because I think, when you look at CompTrain, there was a lot of attention focused on them because they were, I don't want to say one of the first, but they seemed to be the one that did it the biggest with all the plans that they had with what they wanted to do there. And they really didn't deliver as a team. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do this year if they can turn that thing around. Because look, there's talented people there and good coaches. So I think that's the one that people will be watching probably the closest.
Yeah, I mean, you even start to extrapolate out a little bit. I mean, who's to say that you have someone like Deca Comp who has Ellie Turner who could come back. Had a strong showing at Wadapalooza and then also Pat Vellner, Freya Moosbrugger is a up and comer that's also part of that crew. My gosh! And then you even look at what like Matt Torres is doing down.
That's a good point.
In
because he has now what? He has Phil Toon. He has Dallin Pepper, Emma
Carey.
Yeah.
I believe. Fisa Gaffi, kind of part of that group. So here you have James Sprague. This is from Wadapalooza. James Sprague, Dallin Pepper, Phil Toon, Emma Carey, Fisa Gaffi. I mean that's like a good young core there moving up as well. So, man, it's funny, I guess, via Dallin Pepper, one of my young guns to watch in an article was David Bradley, who was second at the games last year, but also has a really good story in terms of like losing a bunch of weight, faced some bullying, and now, was a medalist in the teenage division. He follows Dallin Pepper's programming. But yeah, it's there's a lot of
it's a loaded field. Yeah, it'll be fun to keep track of that this year. Okay, we can move now. I've corrected my numbering system, so I have this all straightened out. We can move to question number 5. All right, so we've made the turn here, going to the top 5. Can Annie's team keep Rich from winning his 10th gold medal at the CrossFit Games? And that the fact that Annie put that team together, really made the team competition. And I don't, because if I say more interesting, it means like it wasn't really interesting to begin with. Like it's always a good thing to follow. But there's a lot of intrigue there now, and I'm not sure if that collection of 4 athletes that Annie brought together can knock off Rich's team, because we still don't know who the second male member of Mayhem is at this point, right? Because Chase is still kind of up in the air.
I've heard rumors, nothing confirmed.
Okay.
Nothing that I'm at liberty to say, potentially.
Okay. Things are developing, is what you're saying.
If one of the developments takes hold, then I don't know if anyone will catch them.
Wow. That's a tease.
I do think that if there's a team out there that can give them a run for it, it's this. I don't know if that answer is like definitively yes, but if there is someone that has a shot,
it's probably them. I mean, look, and you cannot count out the rest of the 2 other teams that stood on the podium last year. There's some talented teams that are emerging in places where traditionally the team competition has not been super strong. This is the first time we've ever had a European team on the podium at the CrossFit Games back in 2021. You can't count them out. But just the star power that Annie Thorisdottir has on her team, I still think the early favorite has to be Rich, regardless of who he puts in there, just because of the strength of the two women that they have.
Yeah.
But it will be fun to watch that play out.
I'm really excited just to see the development that comes out of Con Porter and Tola.
Mm-hmm.
Besides posting David off Blue Water and Aqua de Jo commercials out of the water in Iceland. Have you seen that video?
Yeah, yes, I did. That was.
I half expected that cologne bottle to come up in the middle and it to be an ad.
Mm-hmm.
But
yep.
Con has posted some stuff as far as the one they posted 5 days ago says one of, if not the hardest workout I've ever done. Do not do this. Definitely do not do this with a bunch of super fit people who can push you to do it fast. And when I spoke with him, for Inside the Leaderboard, one of the things he's always talked about is he's struggled going all in.
Yeah.
Just because the environments around him have never been conducive for him being all in. You're going to have that now.
Oh, yeah.
There's BKG there, as part of the training. I completely forgot BKG on the training plan too. But BKG being there, Katrin being there, all of these athletes that are absolutely going to try and squeeze every ounce of potential out of these 2 athletes. And I think it's a great opportunity. For sure.
I agree 100%. That's going to be fun to watch. And I think also now what this has done is really, I think this is just the first wave. This is just the beginning of the super team thing. It is going to come back. All the new rules did was just sort of move the ball back 30 yards. We're going to have more super teams developing. There was the rumor that something might come out of the underdogs camp in Las Vegas. I don't know if that's still a possibility, but this will continue to happen. Mm-hmm. And it will, and it does make the team competition more interesting, especially when you have a clear cut favorite in Mayhem. Can anybody catch him now? And this will be a fun race to watch play out. Number 4, is this the year the kids really take over on the women's side? We saw the emergence of some very talented teenage athletes last year, and the 2 that got the most attention were Mal O'Brien and Emma Carey. But now you have other athletes like Olivia Sulek. You have Annika Greer, who we're going to be talking to this week on our show, so stay tuned for that. And I know Emma Lawson. You have a lot of youngsters who are really ready, I think, to take the next step. And then when you pair someone like Mal O'Brien with the HWPO crew, and now Emma Carey has her crew, is this going to be the year that they take that next step and become contenders? Perennial contenders, because I don't think there's any question it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, and maybe if it's not this year, it's soon.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 3 oldest women in the top 10 this year. Kristen Holta.
Not there anymore.
Mm-hmm. Christy Ermo O'Connell and Annie Thorisdottir. Not there anymore, at least for this year. So now, if you just subtract those 2 athletes out of the games, which you can't necessarily do, but then suddenly you have Haley Adams in third, Gabby Magawa in fourth, and Mal O'Brien in fifth.
Yeah. And no offense, I should have included Haley Adams in that conversation as well, but I think she has a little bit of a head start on some of those other athletes. And, by virtue of what she did a couple years ago, I think she has entered that conversation as a contender.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like a nexus point between the old guard and the new guard.
I think that's a really good way of putting it.
I think this year is, because it's not just the women that you have there now, right? The Adams, Magawa, Mal, Emma Carey. It's the next generation that's also coming up that's maybe only a year behind.
Yeah.
I mean, Ellie Turner's still young. She was 23 last year. Then you had athletes like Annika Greer, Emma Lawson, Olivia Kerstetter, who's still going to be a teenager. She's just aging up. She's 16. More on that later. But this is where I think we see the next big wave of turnover, at least as far as that can. Olivia Sulik. I mean, you go down the WASA leaderboard. Lucy Campbell. There's a ton of Freya, like I mentioned earlier. Paige Powers, Olivia Sulik were both there. I mean, there was like over half the field was basically under 22. So I do think this is the nexus point between, the old, lack of a better term, old guard, established guard on the women's side, and seeing a couple filter out after last year, and this new batch that is already so good. Yeah. Like I said, is already in line to chew up a couple podium spots.
Yeah, I think if as we look back on this year and a couple years from now, there's a very good chance that we'll be like, 2022 was the sort of beginning of the next era, and at least on the women's side. And
Laura Horvath is only going to be 25 this year.
She's going to be around for a while as well.
She's going to be 25 with, multiple podium finish, multiple silver can't speak, medals under her belt. And, she's a couple years older, but she was really one of the athletes that's going to be maybe leading that charge too, given, when she showed up in 2018.
Okay, so let's go now to the top three. So question number 3. Who will emerge as a possible challenger on the men's side? And questions 3 and then the next one are actually related. So we'll start with this one. We know there's Pat Vellner. We know that there's Brent Fikowski. Who else? I mean, Bjorgvin Carl Gudmundsson is always in that conversation as someone who could wind up on the podium. Last year we thought maybe Jason Hopper was going to be that guy. I still think that potential is there. What does he do now in 2022? But other than those names, Scott Panchik is now gone. Noah Olson, I guess you can consider a perennial contender. But who else might have a chance of emerging into the Jason Hopper figure that we had last year? So that new person that shows up that's like, hey, you know what? If things go right here, this guy could wind up on the podium. Like, this guy has that potential. We see that quite a bit, and it's usually during the semifinals where someone jumps up and you say, oh, keep an eye on that guy right there. But I'm not, I don't know who that could be, and that is something that I will be keeping a close eye on as we move through the season.
Yeah. Possible challenger on the men's side. And we could start. This could be another year. This could be last year this year could be 2021 for the women, where we see that a heavier changeover start to show up as far as like the top 10 on the men's side. Because obviously Justin Medeiros, already winning, has kind of planted his flag as the present and future. And as we've talked to Vellner and a couple of those guys that are like, man, the window for us being able to pick him off, isn't getting any bigger. And you look at Vellner's 31, he'll be 32 next year. Fikowski will be 31. And we joke with him, practically a miracle that they're even able to.
I can't believe he's able to drag his old carcass out there on the competition floor, Tommy. He's practically dead.
Then BKG is going to be 29.
Yeah. Let me throw a name at you really fast. Medeiros.
Yeah.
That's a guy who's super intriguing to me because he's with the Mayhem crew now. We know what his weaknesses are. He's going to get hammered on those in Cookeville. He can lift a house. that's someone I will be watching very closely this year to see if the holes in his game are starting to get short up a little bit.
And there's another rookie from last year that's on the Mayhem team, Lazar Djukic. That's
yeah.
I loved in Dubai or in the bus. All the other athletes are calling him Laser. Hey, Laser! It's awesome. That would be an awesome nickname.
Yeah, it would be.
Lazar Laser Djukic.
The laser.
Yeah.
Fire the laser. I like
Lazar the Laser.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Well, to be continued on that one. So we'll watch that. Now this is the second to last question here, and like I said, it plays into question 3, and that is, has Justin Medeiros reached exit velocity? And what I mean by that is, like, is it too late to catch this guy? He, at such a young age, has already accomplished so much, and winning the games the way he did last year, it was very Fraser-esque when Fraser won his first one. Won one event, and then was super consistent the rest of the way. And you mentioned the ages of both Vellner and Fikowski, and Vellner has other things going on in his life. I know he has arranged his life so that he can focus mostly on training, but those things do pull you away at times when you have a kid and a family. Like, there's no way around it. And I don't know if they, and by they I mean, Vellner, Fikowski, that crew, have the time to catch to the runway now to catch Justin. I think Justin's close to establishing himself as like the next dominant force. And this might be the last chance anyone has to catch him. And then we don't know who's going to possibly emerge, but I'm thinking maybe like he's getting set to hit that old nitrous and be like, see you later, guys.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm going to go win my 5 straight.
Or to quote, he's about to be, Mando in that Naboo starfighter when he gets pulled over and it's just like, nope, see ya.
Bye-bye.
I think that point is, I feel more confident about him reaching terminal velocity, I guess, based on his performance at Rogue, too.
Yeah.
Rogue was, had some awesome tests, but it was also very different than the games.
Mm-hmm.
And all he did was just pile up top 3 finishes.
Yeah.
He had 1 finish. His worst finish was 5th. And it was in many ways the same recipe that we saw at the games where, Vellner was able to beat him in 3 out of the 7 events.
Mm-hmm.
But whereas Pat had slightly larger fluctuations, Justin brought the consistency, and it's hard to imagine he's going to get any worse.
Yeah, and I think it's not about Justin getting worse. It's about, does the rest of the field get better so that they can help Pat pick him off a little bit? And that's why Ricky Garrard is such an intriguing character to me, because of what he did back in 2017. Granted, wasn't legit.
Yeah,
but there's still a lot of talent there, and I think that Ricky being with Justin Kotler and working with that crew, like he's got a ton of potential. I think it would be ironic if he ended up being the guy who wound up helping Pat maybe peel some points off of Justin at the games, assuming all 3 of them make it there. Mm. Okay, so that brings us now to our last question. And this one isn't as lighthearted as some of the other ones. But I think it's the one that's on everyone's mind. It's been on everyone's mind for a while. And that is, what will this season look like without Dave Castro? And there is no question that, the games are not where they are without Dave. He has been a gigantic presence in the sport. He has provided the athletes, with that quote unquote villain at the games. He's provided the community with our, shared sort of adversary in the open. And how does that void get filled? I'm not sure it can. Like I said, when this whole thing happened, like I don't think you replace him with just one person.
Yeah.
But he certainly has a gift for having a vision of how to program games events, how to not only craft a great test, but also a great spectacle. And I'm very interested to see how, especially when we get to the games, what it's going to look like without him there, because it will be, it's going to be noticeable.
Yeah. I've been going back and forth on this actually, because I do think some of the stuff that might be slightly different in certain elements, under the fire and pressure that the games kind of provides, people don't see a lot of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like behind the scenes backroom type stuff that never makes the light of day.
Mm-hmm.
That, the boo birds on Instagram don't ever see, won't ever comprehend, and nor should they.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how does that manifest itself on the competition floor? Like I think about all the little different things. It's like, hey, we're at the desk. Hey, let's toss down for the next workout reveal from Dave.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
And now, is that an integral part of putting on the test? No, it's a little bit more of the spectacle side. What will the open announcement look like? Are we going to, we toss down to Dave and his awkward pauses and his long drawn out deliveries and weird sentence structure and, would that just be a video package now? Would that be just something, slightly different? Now, as far as like practicality, it's not much is going to change there. But as far as like some of the spectacle and like having that consistent reference point of, like you said, of a villain, would the storylines or the in ring work change much if Vince wasn't around? No. I don't think so for WWE. Vince McMahon wasn't around. No, but there's certain elements of flair and spectacle and that might be gone from out having that villain as an anchor.
Sure.
So,
and I think too, I've talked to people who are still working on the games team over there and still figuring things out. And the concern is, it's not so much like, okay, how do we program all this and how do we get all this organized? The biggest concern for them is that we need a person at the games to be like the guy who is the decision maker. It's like the buck stops here. And right now they don't have that. And Dave did a really good job of being that guy.
Yeah.
And had to make a lot of tough calls and was the final voice on a lot of stuff. And right now that's missing. So to your point of all the behind the scenes stuff, like how does that all get sorted out so that when you get to the competition floor, it looks like a seamless sort of production. It's just like anything that we've been involved with live television. It's like, as long as what the viewers are seeing looks okay, the truck can be on fire and, people can be, running for their lives. But as long as the viewers are okay and they have no idea, like, you're fine. And
they don't hear what's in our ear.
Oh, man, anytime I take people into a live truck for the first time during like a competition, they always come out just all wide-eyed. Like, I had no idea it was that stressful. I'm like, yeah, man, it's intense in there. So Dave is that guy who kind of keeps everything from catching on fire, and making sure that the train doesn't careen off the tracks.
It's like, you see the movie Superbad?
Yeah.
When McLovin's hanging out with the two cops, and they're like, they get basically called to over the radio, and you hear just like, oh my God, there's so much blood. Hit her again. Oh God.
Yeah.
How much blood could she have left? She's almost dead.
Mm-hmm. No, it's it'll be interesting, and we will definitely be paying attention.
Totally
to
just
that.
crossed two movies with a quote there, but in Superbad, they're over the radio. They're like, oh, there's so much blood, and they just like, nope.
Yeah. So yeah, that's then I think too we'll probably check in back with these questions throughout each segment of the season to see how things are progressing, and those are our 10. So we will continue to revisit those throughout 2022.